be a bit of a stretch, but if I were to ask your childhood self, what's the most important object that you own, what would your response be? Some may say a bicycle, a stuffed animal, or even an iPad. But mine was a paper shoebox, a shoebox of keepsakes. You see, as a child, I moved around a lot, shuttling 7 times between the US and Asia before coming to Hong Kong. I often felt homesick, lost, and numb about my surroundings. I was no stranger to waving goodbye to my personal belongings, whether that meant selling my books, donating my clothes, or giving away toys. With each move, I learned to pack all of my belongings into no more than 3 suitcases, which followed me from San Jose to Guangzhou to Fremont to Hong Kong. This meant that there was only space for essentials, yet despite that, I insisted on bringing this shoebox with me wherever we went. Around the 3rd or 4th move or so, my parents began to notice this strange and peculiar habit of mine. They would ask me, "It's just a shoebox. Why do you bring it every time we move?" Although my 9-year-old self could not explain nor fathom why I cared so much about the shoebox, I would always shrug and tell them, "Because it matters to me." Looking back, that was a very vague response, but I meant every word that I said. To me, this shoebox was an irreplaceable keepsake. Sure, I had my fair share of stuffed animals, video games, and Barbie dolls, but I had a soft spot deep down in my heart for mementos, souvenirs, and trinkets, because these were the items that actually encapsulated my upbringing. A keepsake, by definition, is a small item kept in memory of the person who gave it or originally owned it. They are items that we literally keep for the sake of memories. The first item that I placed into my box of keepsakes was a second tooth I lost. Now, I can reassure you it's not as weird as it sounds. I held on to that tooth because I realized that this marked the end of my infancy. I can also probably guess that you're wondering, if that was your second tooth, then what happened to your first one? That's a mystery I've yet to solve to this day, but I'd like to think that perhaps the tooth fairy added it to her collection of keepsakes as well. Just like how a parent may hold onto their child's umbilical cord, looking back at my collection of baby teeth amidst my box of keepsakes made me realize that this marked the many milestones of growing up. Keepsakes are items that carry and hold emotional value. They can tell a story when we're no longer around one day. They are tangible memories that we can hold in our bare hands, and they are the anchor that weighs down our conscience and prevents it from drifting away in waves. If you can't think of a keepsake in your life, then allow me to ask you this. If you could save any 3 items from a house fire, excluding your family members and pets, what would they be? I decided to ask my friends this question, and here are some of their responses. One of them said that they would like to save a collection of handwritten letters given to them by their friends. Another said that they would like to save their own watercolor palette. Another said that they would like to save memory cards for their cameras. Sure, many of them also said that they would like to save their phones, their laptops, and IDs. And while I do agree that these are important objects, they aren't necessarily what you can deem as a keepsake, because they can be replaced, repurchased, and refurbished, whereas a keepsake's emotional and sentimental value is priceless. Furthermore, people also hold on to keepsakes for 2 main reasons: remembrance and permanence. In fact, in 2018, there was a competition held in the United Kingdom where individuals showcased their most touching and heartwarming items and told their stories behind each keepsake, primarily for the reason of remembrance. Here are a few examples. The first one was a mug from Louis Combe, a 57-year-old man who received it as a gift from his mother. Here is another touching example, a watch that Zoe Murray, a nurse, received on her 18th birthday from her father. Also, take a look at this cat badge. A woman named Anna Cheatham received it from her great uncle who served as a soldier in World War I. But ultimately, the winner of this competition was a family keepsake, a jewelry and music box. The owner of this keepsake, Katie Galloway, was a woman whose grandmother had dementia. However, when the music was played from the box, it allowed for her grandmother to recall fragments of her childhood and start talking again. That's the impact of a keepsake. It allows us to dive deep into our library of memories and select any that can be replayed for a personal enjoyment over and over again. Keepsakes are also the gift that keeps on giving, as they can be passed down from generation to generation and tell stories that words otherwise just cannot convey. To be able to share the memories, the settings, and the emotions that are tied with each keepsake with another individual allows for them to have an intimate peek into a fragment of your lifetime as well. For instance, Lola Rain, a survivor of the Holocaust, only had one possession to remember her family by, which was a dress that her mother had sewn. This dress eventually became a keepsake that allowed for her to share with posterity at later generations and understand her story of forgiveness and perseverance. But ultimately, keepsakes grant us a sense of permanence. Here are a few of my examples. This is a necklace that my grandmother and I made together when I was 7 years old. This is a keychain that my mother gave to me when I visited US for the first time. And here's a notebook given to me by a friend before I left Fremont. Every single page in here represents a reason why she cherishes our friendship so much. The items that you see in this box are what would fan my imagination, fuel my nostalgia, and kindle my dreams. They also provided a sense of comfort and home. In fact, I remember crying into this box during my first week in Hong Kong as a transfer student. But seeing the items in this box brought me the knowledge that a little bit of my past home was following me as I moved into my new one. It is of human nature to yearn for stability and permanence because it grants us a sense of control. And through keepsakes, we are the sole collectors of memorabilia for our own timeline. And I realized this more and more as I stepped into adolescence. I realized the items in this box brought me so much serenity because of the people that I share these memories with. I was determined to help others capture the same degree of emotions that I felt, so I began to create keepsakes too. I began to create handmade greeting cards and abandon the tradition of buying them every single season. Sure, there were a lot of superglue spills, paper cuts, and endless piles of glitter, but seeing that genuine smile and reaction that spread across a person's face when they read my cards reassured me that this wouldn't be another greeting card that just sits on their desk and ends up collecting dust. In a survey of 2,000 Americans conducted in 2019 by GoodNewsNetwork.com, results indicated that nearly 62% of people would rather receive a sentimental and heartfelt gift rather than store-purchased ones. Meanwhile, 66% of respondents would be significantly more likely to remember a sentimental gift, and 55% of them stated that personalized gifts had a much longer lifespan than a store-bought one. So, why is that? Well, just as the old saying goes, it's truly the thought that counts. While it is very, very tempting to buy a fancy or flashy gift for someone, it eventually runs out. But the emotional value and the thousands of memories that are linked with a keepsake are priceless and forever etched into our hearts. If I could go back in time, back to when I was 9 years old, I would answer my parents' question this way. This isn't just a shoebox to me, it's my home. Because inside this shoebox, filled to the brim with gifts, trinkets, mementos, and keepsakes, I have created my own sense of home and permanence, with a foundation for maintaining stability and a roof for shielding sentimental value. So, with all of that, I would like to leave you with a challenge. Collect your own keepsakes. Better yet, place them in a shoebox like I did and be prepared to share it with whoever walks your way.